Hello, Cassandra Patton here from Wavecrest Swimming. In today's video, I'm going to be analysing my own technique. I'm going to be pulling it apart, telling you what I'd really worked hard on, what was good technique and what needed an improvement. So this video is currently running at medium pace, just so we can have a little look at it in a bit more detail. So first of all, what I believe is really important is that people understand how a technique goes together. Lots of people come to me and they say, Cassie, I really want to work on my catch, make my catch stronger. Now, as you can see from this video here, the catch is the most important part of the stroke. It's where nearly all of the propulsion, especially on freestyle, comes from. Now, this is where a lot of people trip up. You need to think about building your technique like you would do building a house. Now, let me explain that a little bit further. Your head and your breathing are like your foundations. Your head position can really have both a positive and negative effect on your stroke. If you lift your head too high, your hips can sink and therefore cause lots of frontal resistance and lots of drag. Now, the second part is the arms, the entry, where you put them into the water, how you put them in. Now, you want to be thinking about making sure your body is in its strongest position. As I come out of this streamlining element here, you can see that when I'm entering, I'm trying to enter with my fingertips first. That was one of the faults that I had. If you see on my video, I do enter slightly thumb first. So that's something that I coach my swimmers to make sure they don't make the same mistake as me. But I do work on making sure that my hand enters in line with my shoulder. That is the plane of movement that your arm likes to work on the best. Now, that's kind of the first flaw. The second flaw is the rotation. The rotation really drives that distance per stroke. As you can see here, it's driving my body forwards, allowing me to open up those angles through the shoulder to get into the correct position for the catch. Now, your leg kick, that's kind of a bit like the cement. It goes, there's no right place necessarily to pop it in when you're working on technique, but what you want to make sure you're doing is that it's not creating drag. You're thinking about kicking up, having that driving force up through the feet, up through the legs, rather than having that bent knee and kicking down. Now, finally, the final part that you should be working on is the ceiling, and it is that catch. Everything you're doing is about coming in, entering there, getting that high elbow and pushing it forward. Right, so I've had a little chat and you've had a little watch as I've been discussing the different elements of my stroke. So let's go right back to the beginning. Head. You can see here that when I'm breathing, let me just go back a frame or two with my I'm using Objectives Video here, which is my video analysis tool that I use. Now you can see, if I draw a straight line, that my spine, head and neck are all nicely in line there. As I'm breathing, my cheek is just resting on the water. I like to say rest it on the water like a pillow. So you just want to have that turning of that head rather than it being lifting or breaking that center line at all. Now, the exhalation is really important. As soon as you come in, try and trickle that breath out. Now, as you can see here, I do breathe every 3. However, in races, I would quite often breathe 3, 2, 2, 3, just to get a little bit more oxygen into the system. Right, so we've worked on the head. Now let's work and have a little look at our arms. Now, as I mentioned before, I did have a bad habit of going a little bit thumb first. Now, being the picky coach now that I am, I would have said that I would have wanted this arm to have been a fraction wider. Now, this is my right side and I've actually had to have a full reconstruction of my shoulder because of this slight flaw in my technique. I entered it too wide and I entered thumb first, put a lot of pressure on the shoulder and basically wore out my bicep tendon. Now, on this one here, again, slightly on the inside, but not quite as pronounced. So you really want to think about, if you were to push yourself out of the water, the deep end, where would you put your hands? You'd put them slightly wider than shoulders, your elbows would come up, and that's where that power comes from. That's what we want to be thinking at that front end of the stroke. Now, the reason that we don't want to go thumb first is it puts your shoulder, your bicep head tendon into impingement. If you do that again and again, I was swimming between 80 and 100,000 meters per week, your shoulder says, actually, you know what, I don't really like this very much anymore. So yeah, for me, that's one of the key areas that if I could go back in time and change my stroke and work on it, I really would. Now, the rotation is super important. You want to have that rotation from everything down your collarbone all the way down. So you can see here I have the rotation through my shoulder line here, but also if you look back, my hips are also rotated the same amount. Now, the kind of the rule of thumb, the thought that people say is you should do about 45 degrees of rotation each side. Now, the head shouldn't impact onto the rotation. It does, but it shouldn't do. Okay, so really try and think about having your head being nice and even and still. Let's go back in time a little bit on this video so we can watch it from under the water, because it's quite nice to see what's going on. We don't have this luxury always. So you can see there, if I go back a frame here, you can see that whole, there's my collarbones there, and everything down my body has got that rotation. So it's driving this arm further forward. I'm getting a greater distance per stroke. I've opened up the angle here, so you can see that this angle is now allowing me to get into the correct position for that catch. If I wasn't being rotated, I wouldn't have been able to get that high elbow position through the catch. Nice. So that driving, you don't want it to be necessarily hip driven. They want it to work in unison, hips and shoulders together. But I do find sometimes when people are thinking about it, they naturally are being driven by the shoulders and the hips are following. So really think about that movement being as one, working up the body. Okay, so leg kick. Now, my dad always said that my legs looked like two dead fish being dragged along. I'm being a distance swimmer, that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. But one of the things that you do want to have is make sure that your body stays inside the cylinder of efficient swimming. So if I pop a little line there, that's just deeper than my hips. My leg kick should, as much as possible, be staying inside that cylinder, as you can see there. Sometimes a foot, sometimes a knee breaks that, but the majority of the time those hips are up, those feet are up. I'm driving with my hamstrings here and toes up to the surface. Nice. So yeah, there's different leg kicks. When I go into sprint mode, then I would definitely bring in that 6-beat leg kick. This is kind of a 2-beat leg kick, so I'm just using it really for balance rather than for propulsion. Okay, now I get asked a lot in this video that I have this glide at the front of my stroke. Now this is slow, this is 40% effort, I would say, kind of real warm-up pace. Being a little bit lazy, if I'm honest, this is just steady swimming. So the fact that at the front of the stroke I have that small section where I'm kind of feeling the water, I'm gliding, that is just, I guess, a little idiosyncrasy in my stroke. You can see it here. I just come in and have a little tiny play. That's me setting up for that catch. Now when I sprint, so at the end of the video around here, you'll see that I'm sprinting. That completely goes. I come in and it's always driving forward. So I've lost that small little play with the water and it's straight in, down, catch, in, down, catch. Remember, this is at half speed. So if I was to just pause this, go back a fraction and then go to full speed, then you'll see that it's completely got rid of it there. So there I am at full speed, coming in and just getting that water, getting that catch, and off I go. Right, so we've talked about the head, the arms, the kick, the rotation. Now this is the bit that I know you've all been waiting for, the catch. Let me come back here. Going back in time in my video, and the reason I like to look at it under the water is because that's where the magic happens. Okay, that's what you can really see. Now I worked on my catch for about 6 months intensively, and in that time I went from being quite an average swimmer to winning a World Championship silver medal. Now I'm not saying that was completely down to the catch. I did also increase my training, and a lot of different factors came into play, but I do think a big chunk of it was to do with getting that catch a lot better. So let's go through. I'm setting up, I'm getting that full extension here. You can see I've rotated, my head's in line, nose slightly forward, not down, not creating any resistance. And then as I go through, I'm thinking about pushing the water back with my forearm. Okay, that's the main thing that I like to think about, is just pushing that water backwards. Because good old Sir Isaac Newton and his law of motion, every action equal and opposite reaction. Now in swimming there's drag, which does slow you down, which has an impact on your stroke. However, by having these backwards pushes here with that forearm, that full early vertical forearm, that is what is driving me forwards. Okay, it's quite important that you understand that, and you have that understanding of that movement. Now it's quite a tricky movement, so what I say to my swimmers is, imagine you have a beach ball. Okay, you have a beach ball kind of sat here. Now you're pushing that beach ball back with your forearm and your hand. Okay, so you're pushing it back with both of those elements as you come through. So there it is sitting there, and then you grab hold of it, you come over the top of it, and you push it back. So that's a nice way to think about the catch and how to do that from a biomechanical point of view. It's tricky, it's hard. A lot of swimmers struggle with this because it's a movement that we don't have in day-to-day life. So it's just about doing some drills, and I'm going to be putting a video on YouTube soon for some catch drills to work on. And it's just about having patience. Like I said, this took 6 months of continuous thought and work to get that catch in that position. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've never actually analysed my own stroke properly before, so it's been quite fun for me to do it as well. If you have any questions, please do pop them below. And yeah, if you have anything else, any videos that you want me to work on, please do let me know. I hope you have a lovely day, and thank you for watching my video.